Hey, read through the word. Today is February 13th. Oh my goodness. How can we be halfway through February already? Yes, today's February 13th, and today's lesson is called Type and Shadow. And I was just trying to think, if this year last time, I might have called this lesson that too, but I went a little bit different with it. And we went word nerd with it, with the dwelling and dwell and tabernacle, and which we'll go into a little bit today, but that's not exactly what I'm going all into today. So today's lesson is called Type and Shadow, and today's verse that I'm using is actually, seems like a boring verse. You're like, okay, Lisa, what are you doing? It says this, in Exodus chapter 38, verse 21, this is an inventory of the materials used in the building of the tabernacle of the covenant. The Levites compiled the figures as Moses directed, and Ithamar, son of Aaron, the priest, served as recorder. And that's it. That's the verse I'm going with. You're like, we're just talking about, actually, no, it was hard for me to pick which verse, because what I'm going to talk about is the tabernacle as a whole, and what it's about, and what it means. And there are lots of, and I'm sure if you've got a study Bible, or if you have that book that I talk about that's being reprinted again by it's What the Bible's All About. Let me see. It's sitting on that shelf right there. It's called Reproducible Maps, Charts, and Timelines. And then there's another one that is the Rose Chronological Charts book. Or if you've got a study Bible of some type, it always has a picture of the tabernacle. And I told this story last year, but it's fun to tell. Years ago, oh my word, years ago, I taught a Bible study on the tabernacle, and part of it is you were supposed to draw it. I mean, and I do it all the time now, usually with a whiteboard with my students, and draw out and showing the proportions and everything. And I had, and oh my word, I'm trying to think of 4 ladies that were in that class. 2 of them are with Jesus now. And it was a small class I taught in the mornings. And there was one of the ladies, so we were supposed to draw it out. And she had gone through because she didn't have technology like that in her home. She had taken her Bible that had the picture of it to the library where she could make a color photocopy of the picture of the tabernacle. And then she cut it out and glued it in her Bible study book. And her name was Miss Joyce. And I still remember her doing that. And so it is, it's every time I think teaching the tabernacle is one of the things that really opened up. I remember teaching about the tabernacle, and y'all know I'm such the visual person. And I can tell you the room I was standing in, we've totally renovated at my church now. And it's actually where my school is now. And I can see myself standing in there, and I can picture every bit of the tabernacle around me. I could picture the Holy of Holies. I could picture all of it in that. And it was really one of the lessons that helped all of that come alive and let me see what the tabernacle was really all about. And so I have this deep love. I mean, that was like a 12-week Bible study. And so of understanding is part of why I urge you to pay attention to when you see, not just the book of Numbers, when you see lists and numbers and things that really sound odd to us, they're there for a reason, which I'm about to show you with the tabernacle. Just a few things that I want to take notice of. So, because what we see is, remember when we're talking meta-narrative of Scripture, we have I always picture this is the Bible, and here's the whole story that's going through. And that there are places on the timeline where God will remind us what the story is all about. And so this is God's redemptive plan for his people. Remembering that everything went wrong in the garden. I don't like the word wrong. Sin changed everything in the garden. Let's do that. And so, the Garden of Eden, where God dwelled with his people, with Adam and Eve, he walked in the cool of the day with Adam and Eve, and he talked with them. Remember, that's what happened when sin entered. He showed up for his walk and talk with them, and they were hiding. But paradise, where everything was great and wonderful, and God dwelled with his people, he desires. But because of sin, they were cast out of the garden. The cherubim was placed there. They could no longer enter into the garden. And so the story ever since has been God still wants to dwell with his people, but sin's in the way. And so what we see here is just another step in God's redemptive plan, as he's showing us that he still does want to dwell with his people. This whole idea of dwelling with his people is the word tabernacle. The translation is that when we get to John 1:14, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, that it says, and the word became flesh and dwelt among us, and it really means he tabernacled among us, that Jesus, he dwelled. So this idea of tabernacle is the dwelling place of God with man. And so when we look at this, we can see as the tabernacle, there's actually 3 different ways we can look at it, and I think we're just going to go through 2 today, and we'll be looking at some other stuff this week. But when we look at that, we see the tabernacle is, first, it's a tented palace for Israel's divine king. They have God, and God will come, and he will sit enthroned between the cherubim, the mercy seat, the top of the Ark of the Covenant, that is in the most holy place, also known as the Holy of Holies. Whenever you see either of those, it's the same place. It's the innermost part of the tabernacle. His royalty is shown by, we see the curtains, and if you pay attention, that's what I'm saying. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. I'm like in my class at school. Come on, people. Let's pay attention. Pay attention. Purple, you'll see, notice the colors. See, I think we don't, so if you have, usually when they picture the tabernacle in a study Bible, they will do it in full color, so you see all these things. But the purple that will show royalty, you'll have blue that shows God's divinity, and you will also see all these different metals that are used. Now, so when you're looking at this part we're reading now, notice the detail that goes into the lampstand, the detail that goes into the curtain, the detail that goes into everything, and what you're seeing pictured there, and the colors, the metals, because what you see is there is bronze. Yes, there's bronze in the courtyard, but the closer you get to the Holy of Holies, the more precious the metals become. So the Holy of Holies, the most holy place, only gold is found there. But you'll see gold and silver and then bronze. But the closer you get to the most holy place, to God seated on his throne in the cherubim, all of this is pictures of the throne room of God, his dwelling place. And every bit of that is picture of that, but as Israel's divine king. But you also have pictures of where God first dwelled with his people, and that was the Garden of Eden. So the tabernacle also reminds us of Eden. So you'll see that, and I want you to see that this is a midway point in God's redemptive storyline with his people, that we had the Garden of Eden, and then we'll have this right here, the tabernacle. And there's so many things, types and shadows, that we're going to see pictured here, but then you will see all of that redemptive story be completed when we get to Revelation chapter 21 and 22, which we'll always see. So if you want to look at right here, as you see everything in their tabernacle, take a look back at Genesis 1 and 2, and then go forward to Revelation 21 and 22. And all of this is to show us one thing. And so the tabernacle is the place where God dwells. So is Eden. It was where he dwelled, where he was able to be with his people. It has an east-facing entrance that was guarded by the cherubim, which is what happens when they're sent out of Eden. There's an east-facing entrance that's guarded by a cherubim, that they're not able to go back in. But that's the same as well. You see the tree of life that was pictured, that was in the Garden of Eden, the one that they could eat from, but they chose not to. Or they chose to, but they chose, anyway, that's a whole different discussion about, getting kicked out of the garden. I think they did eat from it, but God's mercy in his judgment is that he kicked them out so they could no longer eat from the tree of life and, be stuck in their, sinful state forever. So, in God's judgment, there's always mercy. So, but that tree of life that was there, that you'll see in Revelation 21 and 22, it is here in the tabernacle. We know it is the lampstand. So, the tree of life is pictured by the lampstand. Go read the details, how it's only made from one piece of gold. Everything's hammered out to show the flowers and the leaves and everything there. And so you also see the tree of knowledge that is pictured here. The tree of knowledge here is, remember, is the knowledge of good and evil. It's pictured as the law, the tablets that are in the Ark of the Covenant. They are there, the law, the mercy seat that sits upon it. And so that is there too. That was also in the garden. So God's dwelling in the tabernacle is a step toward the restoration of paradise that we will see be completed in Revelation with the new heaven and the new earth. But we also see type and shadow right here of Jesus. And as the storyline of redemptive history progresses, I just dropped my pen. And remember that the Bible is God's progressive revelation to man. He gives us what we need to know when we need to know it. And so as he's continuing the story, we're going to see all of these types and shadows that are given to us here that we're going to show up later with Jesus. The tabernacle's all about Jesus, which is what we talked a lot about last year. But Jesus is the true tabernacle. John 1:14 tells us that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. It's this same Greek translation of the tent of meeting. When Jesus became God, he tabernacled among us. Jesus also talked about the temple of his body. And then Paul tells us that we are the tabernacle. We are the temple of the living God in 2 Corinthians 6:16. So Jesus is the true tabernacle, but the whole picture of God dwelling with his people is given to us through that too. And Jesus's body is the curtain. The curtain that is purple and blue is a picture of the body of Jesus is ripped in two, so that there is no longer any curtain to separate that which is unholy but from the Holy of Holies. That's torn in two. Which is shown to us in Matthew 27:51, and then is explained to us in the book of Hebrews. This is why we don't just read one book of the Bible. We read the whole thing, because it takes the whole thing for us to understand. And then Jesus is the great high priest over the house of God. Hebrews will tell us that, over greater, better, superior. That is the role of Jesus. And that Jesus is everything that goes on at the tabernacle. Everything, all the bronze laver, and then I point like I'm standing here getting ready to go into the Holy of Holies. Back behind me, on the other side of that curtain, would be the bronze laver, and then there would be the altar where everything was offered up. So Jesus is the full and final sacrifice. John 1:29 says, "Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." And then Hebrews 10 tells us this: we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. Once for all. He is the full and final. So everything that we see pictured here in the tabernacle we'll find is full of completion in Jesus. And so it's not just a tent. Everything there is for a reason. A type and shadow to remind us of where we're falling from and where we're headed to and how we get there through Jesus. So we'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.